The Green Bay Packers dominate on Thursday Night Football and look like every bit of the Super Bowl hopeful that I thought they would be. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today, as I am every Friday episode, by my man, Nick Cattles. We are going to be breaking down this Thursday Night Football matchup. We're going to be going over some best bets for Week 2 in the NFL. Before we dive in, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like our favorite players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. It's Mazda. Move or be moved, and be moved, actually, with Mazda. But with that being said, we got a pretty good Thursday Night Football game. It wasn't the most competitive game of all time, but watching the Green Bay Packers out there was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I was just completely impressed by their defense, the way they're only able to rush 4. They're able to drop 7 back in coverage. Jaden Daniels didn't really have anywhere to go for most of the game. So coming out of it, I mean, the Packers took care of business on offense, scored 27 points. But man, that defense, after what they did to Detroit and then what just happened out there, they look every bit the Super Bowl level defense that we thought they might be able to beat.
Yeah, Micah Parsons was just unbelievable tonight. I think he had 8 pressures. He was a game changer. As you mentioned, the fact that you can rush 4 because you have Micah means that you can be coverage on the back end, which limits the big plays passing wise. And also, Tyler, we can't forget, Jaden Daniels, his ability to run and drive you crazy with his legs, that was completely erased tonight because of that coverage and because of that zone you were able to play. And it all begins with Micah Parsons. We talked about it last week. Would Dallas have won that game if they had Micah? You look at his impact on Green Bay, a little bit in the first game, but tonight it was obvious what he did. Just a tremendous effort, tremendous game from him, and that defense is scary. And just wait, because don't forget, he got traded so late in the process. It's only going to get better as long as they stay healthy.
Yeah, 100%. Like, this isn't even the best version of that Packers defense. And we may sound excited about the defensive performance we just saw, but my guy Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers, he is hyped.
The Green Bay Packers dominated the Washington Commanders on Thursday night, but they still need to get that killer instinct. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, with 3 quick takeaways from a dominating Thursday night performance from the Packers. It starts with this offense. They had several chances in the first and second half to put this game away. The Packers had almost 300 yards of offense in the first half, but only 14 points to show for it. This was a game that was nowhere near as close as the final score indicated, and that's a problem for the Packers. They need to put these games away. On the other hand, Tucker Kraft is a star, an absolute star. The most yards by a tight end in a decade in Green Bay. A pair of touchdowns. Everything after the catch was spectacular. And for Jordan Love, I thought this was a B game for him. And yet, statistically, it's going to look like one of the better games of his career. That's how good he is. That is the level he can play to. We've seen him play to. He had on the first drive chances to hit Dontavian Wicks and Matthew Golden for touchdowns. Couldn't make it happen. If he hits either one of those, maybe this all plays out a little bit more comfortably for the Packers.
Like, he's not wrong, but it's funny coming out of that game and being like, the offense, it wasn't that good. It could have been better. Classic Pete. He's always expecting perfection, and I understand it. But I would say that we rave about the defense, but Jordan Love, he's right. There were a few throws that he did miss, and it looks good now, and they can win a Thursday night game on a short week. But if the Packers want to be that Super Bowl team that they can be, Jordan Love is going to have to play better. But it's week 2, and, what they've shown so far, they've kind of checked all the boxes they could possibly check at this point.
I thought they played with their food a little bit and allowed Washington to kind of hang in that game. But I want to go back to what Pete said about, Tucker Kraft. I mean, this
Witchcraft.
guy, it's like, did Dan Quinn understand that they had Tucker Kraft out there and he was just doing everything that he wanted to do to that defense, whether it was man, whether it was zone? Mm-hmm. I thought LaFleur played around with the motion a little bit, and he just Kraft single-handedly dismantled that Washington defense. And let me say one more thing about the game, Tyler. The Washington coaching staff was not very good. The end of the first half, you're down 14-3. You've got all 3 timeouts. You've got just over 2 minutes left. And they kind of just waltz down the field playing for a field goal. And then on third down with 26 seconds left, they still have a timeout. And they throw an incomplete pass when they're set for a 58-yard field goal. That's not a chip shot. And then they missed the field goal, which set up Green Bay for a shot at their own field goal at the end of the first half. Fortunately for them, Green Bay missed that field goal. And then you had Micah Parsons, one-on-one during a critical third down, lined up opposite of rookie Josh Connerly. Connerly gave up 7 pressures by himself. Yep. What are we doing? I mean, I don't know what Washington staff was thinking multiple times during the game, and they got outcoached, they got outplayed.
Yeah, and it does make you wonder. Cliff Kingsbury had a really good first year in Arizona. Yep. He has a really good first year in Washington, and kind of the book on Cliff is once people start to see what he's doing, it's not quite as magical. And look, I don't think that we should be as worried about Washington as maybe some people are going to act, but no doubt about it, it wasn't a great performance. And my guy David Harrison from Locked On Commanders talked about how it was pretty bad all the way around.
Offense, ugly. Defense, ugly. Special teams, ugly. It's the only way to describe this Washington Commanders loss. First loss of the season, that's the good news. You got a long week ahead of you before the Las Vegas Raiders come to Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland to try to clean this whole thing up. But when you look at the basic just numbers of the situation, Jaden Daniels completed less than 63% of his passes 5 times all of last season. He's done it in both of the seasons, or the weeks this season for the Washington Commanders. The offense just looks out of sync. The defense, clearly, I think the word exposed. And then if you want to add injury to insult, literally, Austin Eckler looks like he's got an injury that's probably going to cost him the rest of his season. Dietrich Wise Jr., the same boat. So a lot of things for the Washington Commanders to address over the next week or so. We're going to be there for every single step of the way. So check out Locked On Commanders. Make sure you're sticking with us 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Look, it was a bad game for Washington, but I'm not pressing the panic button. To me, the Packers are the story here. The Packers were so good. Also, it's a short week, Thursday night game on the road early in the season before guys are in condition. Austin Eckler, maybe, that's a big loss, but Eckler is getting older, man, and I didn't think he looked great before he got hurt. Obviously, Bill, is everybody's favorite. JCM, I think getting him more involved, maybe making a move at running back to add somebody in, something small like that could make sense. Honestly, I am more concerned with Washington's defense. We knew that last year they were able to get pass rush by committee, but they still don't have that certified, bona fide pass rusher. And in the secondary, I thought they were getting run by throughout. Marshawn Lattimore didn't look like his old self. So I think the offense for Washington might ultimately be okay. This is just a really good Packers defense. But that Washington defense, I don't know that they'll be able to be significantly better than what they were tonight because, like you said, the Packers kind of played with their food and didn't really have a perfect game. I didn't think the Commanders' defense was very impressive. I'm less worried about the offense.
Yeah, Lattimore's not the same guy. That's obvious.
Right.
He's in his 9th season. He's dealt with a bunch of injuries. When he came over to Washington last year, he was cooked over and over and over again. So he's had a tough time. I don't think he's anywhere close to being a legitimate bona fide shutdown corner anymore. Those days are done. And if you're Washington, I was looking at this team wondering and thinking this is going to be a step back for them this year. You look at their schedule last season, a lot of things kind of fell their way. Daniels was fantastic. if you take the dynamic of Daniels being able to run with the football, that impacts this offense tremendously because it's not like they have the bell cow in the backfield who you can say,
Exactly.
oh, no, if we don't have Daniels running the football, we could just give it to that guy. Not so much. And as far as Green Bay, I had them in the Super Bowl before the season. I feel good about
Me
it.
too.
They are a complete football team as long as Jordan Love takes care of the football and they stay healthy. They're going to be a tough out this season.
100%. And it kind of feels like a collision course with them in Philly right now, but a lot of season left to play out, that's for sure. And speaking of Philly, we got a Super Bowl rematch this weekend. Time to get into my best bets, and I ain't going with Philly. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I am going to go for my choice of the player that delivered. I'm going to go with Tucker Witchcraft, baby, from the Green Bay Packers. He was absolutely incredible tonight. Like my guy Peter Bukowski broke down, like Nick was talking about, he goes out there, 6 catches, 124 yards, 1 touchdown, looking like his own version of George Kittle. Tucker Kraft is not just a blocker anymore. He is a guy who can legitimately break a game open. And just like Tucker Kraft was able to deliver for the Green Bay Packers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday on your order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through November the 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is FanDuel Friday, folks, which means the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Again, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. We're getting ready to go through my 5 best bets of the weekend on this FanDuel Friday. Went 3-2 last week here on the show. Cannot wait to add a little excitement to every game this Sunday. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Nick, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We broke down that Thursday night football game where the Packers pulverized the Commanders. And yes, folks, I do love alliteration. Can't get away from it, and I never will. But with that being said, getting into the best bets of the weekend, we got a great game here between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, a rematch of the Super Bowl. And the Chiefs are going to have a specific plan here that they used in the Super Bowl, and they're hoping that it works out better for them, and that's make Jalen Hurts throw the football.
If you have all those offensive weapons, how do you contain Jalen Hurts? How do you get it to where he is not going to be a guy that's going to hurt you with his legs?
Yeah, I'm fascinated how they're going to play that, because in the Super Bowl, it felt like Spags dared the Eagles to beat them with his arm, with Jalen Hurts' arm. They did a great job of taking Saquon Barkley out of that matchup. I mean, Saquon, that was one of the least efficient performances he had in the entire 2024 season. So Jalen was able to push back that defense. He had answers to the blitz and disguise pressure looks. He was 17 of 21 in that game, over 220 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, including the dagger in the third quarter. So Jalen was able to answer that, and they made him throw the football.
Now, here's the thing. Last week, Jalen Hurts had the most time in the pocket of any quarterback in the NFL, but also had the lowest average depth of target in the NFL. He had all the time in the world and could not push the ball downfield. I think Philadelphia's offense will get better as the year goes on, but I don't think they're anywhere close to the level that they were at last year in the Super Bowl. I'm taking Kansas City at home plus 1.5. I know that Kansas City lost their first game, but there's no way they're going to lose at home and go to 0-2. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs and 1.5 points against the Eagles. What say you, Nick?
When's the last time Kansas City was a home dog?
Exactly. No way. No way I'm betting against them in that one and giving up points.
I will say, I'm going to regret it, but I'm rolling with Philly. I'm rolling with Philly because of a couple things. Xavier Worthy, I think, is going to miss this game.
Right.
I don't know what Kansas City has offensively. I think Mahomes did about as well as you could do without Worthy. You don't have Rashee Rice. You don't have Worthy. Travis Kelce, as we know, is not the same Travis Kelce.
True.
So I don't think they're going to be able to do a ton against this Philly defense. And don't forget, Jalen Carter will be back. He served his quote-unquote suspension.
Yeah.
Spit on a dude before the game. If you spit on Dak before a play, then you come back the next week. So I'm going to regret it. I'm going to regret it because Kansas City is very unlikely going to go 0-2. But I just feel Philly's defense, with the issues that KC has right now with the lack of targets, I think Philly will do just enough, and they win this game by a field goal.
You know, it is slightly concerning, though, because Kansas City's defense was not good against the Chargers. So you could say, oh, the Eagles' offense isn't at the level it was at last year in the Super Bowl, but that Chiefs' defense looks pretty far away from where it was in the Super Bowl last year. So that is a concern. But again, like I cannot bet against Kansas City getting points at home. But either way, another big-time team in the AFC is the Buffalo Bills. And I got to do it. They're taking on the Jets in New York or New Jersey, whatever you want to call it. I'm going with the Jets plus 6.5 because I think that offense can put some points on the board against that Buffalo defense. And my guy, John Butchko from Locked On Jets, is pretty high on that Jets offense too.
I mean, is it possible that the Jets offensive line plays great against a good defensive front and then you see regression? Of course it is. Is it possible, that Breece Hall game was like a one-time mirage? Of course it is. But based on what we saw, if the Jets play like that through the course of the season, this offense is going to be watchable, which is a huge step up for this team. So I'm going to stay optimistic until the Jets give me a reason to not be optimistic about this offense.
I know exactly how John feels about just wanting a watchable offense. Trust me. I know. Yeah, right. We know all about that. This is defense first corner over here. But Ed Oliver, the excellent interior player for the Bills, was in the locker room with a cart and a boot on his foot. The Buffalo defense didn't look great last week against the run with Derrick Henry and struggled with the mobility of Lamar Jackson. Well, the Jets have a good offensive line. They ran the ball well with their two-headed monster of Braylon Allen and then Breece Hall. And Justin Fields, for all his flaws, is a very good mobile quarterback. He can run around and make stuff happen. So I don't think that the Jets win this game, but Buffalo coming off a primetime, emotional comeback win, there could be an emotional letdown going into a less important game against the Jets. On the road, I just think there are a lot of factors that stack up here. I'm going to take the Jets in the points, even if I think that Buffalo wins. So give me Jets plus 6.5.
Yeah, Tana Ekstrand, a very interesting situation. He was in Detroit, right? Detroit, They lose Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn takes Ekstrand with him to the Jets, and Ekstrand had a very good debut as the OC. Meanwhile, Detroit's offense couldn't get out of its own way last weekend. That's a storyline to continue to watch. I agree with you. I'm taking the Jets plus 6.5. You said they ran the football well last week. They ran for 182 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they're going to pound the football. I think they're going to try to, keep away from Josh Allen and not give him a ton of possessions. I think they'll run the ball enough to keep it close enough. Division game, home game, I'll get the 6.5.
100%. And I don't like to touch over-unders. I'll be honest with you. I just hate over-unders. They never seem to go the way. But if I had to lean, I would lean under on this one. I think Buffalo might come out a little sluggish with what I'm saying, and then the Jets' defense will play real well. I think it'll be a close game. But you mentioned, Ekstrand and taking him away from the Detroit Lions and what that might mean. Speaking of that, I'm going against the Lions this week with one of my bets as well. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Move the game forward with Mazda, folks. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move the crowd, they move the culture, and they keep the game moving forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward is the Buffalo Bills comeback against the Baltimore Ravens. Watching Josh Allen throw for 250 yards in the fourth quarter, bring his team back from down 15 points and get that win. It was absolutely insane. One of the best regular season games that we've seen in quite some time. It was a scoregami as well, 41-40, not something that we've seen. And anytime we get something brand new, it always helps move the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. I own a Mazda, folks. I love my Mazda, and I know that you will too. It's Mazda. Move and be moved. All right, Nick, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Thursday night game. Now we got to dive into the rest of my bets. We got 2 bets on the board right now. I'm taking the Chiefs plus 1.5 at home against the Eagles, going with the Jets plus 6.5 at home against the Bills. But like I said, I want to talk a little bit of the Detroit Lions here. And I know that there were some ugly moments for the Bears, and that has left some folks concerned in Chicago, including Lauren Cox of Locked On Bears.
So I am by no means panicking about Caleb Williams. I think everything that was going wrong with him in this game is fixable and improvable and should get better. And ultimately, he did enough good to give you a lot of that faith and confidence, too, that better play is coming. But for the first time, this game felt like he did a little bit more of the letting down than the rest of the team. Now,
and I agree. Caleb Williams missed some throws. He wasn't super accurate, but I also don't think it was all bad. And I think he flashed some things. And I think Caleb Williams may take some time to get in the Ben Johnson offense. But I'm not convinced that the Lions' issues last week were just because they played a good Packers defense. I think the Lions have some issues up front on the offensive line, which has been a pillar. I think Jared Goff really struggled outside. Did you see the stat that Jared Goff is like 0-19-1 in games that haven't been called by Sean McVay and Ben Johnson? The entire Bears team is going to be playing so hard for Ben Johnson this week, going into Detroit, revenge game factor. I don't know that I don't know that the Bears win this game, but 6.5 points in a division matchup, I got to take the Bears plus 6.5.
Feels like a lot of points, but I'm actually going to go with Detroit. I think Detroit's going to cover. Am I super confident in that? No, of course I'm not. But there's the familiarity between Campbell and Johnson. As much as Johnson knows about Detroit, Detroit knows about Ben Johnson.
True.
And the way that Ben Johnson handled that football game at the end last week on Monday night, it concerned me. Kick the ball out of bounds, do something different. He looked a little lost, a little deer in the headlights. First, head coaching moment for him. And I'm not saying he's going to fail down the road and be a failure as a head coach, but that was a rough start for him. And I think it's a tough environment for Caleb Williams to go into. And after watching that fourth quarter meltdown, I just can't take Chicago going on the road playing against Detroit. I think Detroit's going to be very upset, walk into that game, very motivated to prove to the football world that they're not as bad as they looked last week. And I think they proved that point, and they win by a touchdown.
That is somewhat concerning, Nick. I'm not going to lie to you. Look, I'm trying to get 5 bets in here, keep it 5 all week long. And I'm looking around. I don't see a lot of enticing lines here. And I'm like, man, division game, getting the points, we'll see. But I can't lie to you. If we had to rank my 5 picks on confidence meter, that one's probably number 5. But one I am much more confident in is the Jacksonville Jaguars getting 3.5 points against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know that Trevor Lawrence has been up and down in his career, but I think he can go into Cincinnati and make some plays, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. My guy James Rapine from Locked On Bengals, and then Tony Wiggins, the barber himself, talked about that in the crossover episode.
I think Trevor Lawrence has gotten so underrated nationally. All these people just brush him off like, oh, it's Trevor Lawrence. He's dealt with a lot of chaos around him. And I think he can still be a really, really, I'll say it again, really, really, really good quarterback. And I have pretty high expectations for him coming into this year. And so I want to preface it that way because I think Bengals fans need to be very leery of the former number 1 overall pick.
And I agree. And I think with the weaponry that Jacksonville has, their offensive line was incredible last week in a turn of events. I still think that Cincinnati's defense gave up over 300 passing yards to Joe Flacco. They should have lost that game to the Cleveland Browns. I am not overly impressed with Cincinnati. I think this one is an absolute shootout, and I am going to take Jacksonville getting the magic number with 3.5. Anytime you get a 7.5, you get a 3.5. I'm all over that. Give me Jacksonville 3.5 against Cincy.
I agree with you. I'm going with the Jaguars as well. We know Cincinnati, they get off to slow starts. They won last week, but as you mentioned, I thought that was more about the opponent than it was about Cincinnati. So you're not playing Cleveland this weekend. You're playing Jacksonville. And I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars will make enough plays against that Cincy defense. And, I don't know. The one thing, if I'm Cincinnati, look, the offense got off to a slow start. Joe Burrow didn't do much. The offense didn't do much against the Browns. I don't know if they're going to be significantly better week 2 because that's kind of the Zach Taylor calling card. So I could see this kind of being a fist fight and a back and forth battle. Give me Jacksonville 3.5. I like the hook.
Yeah, 100%. It's just good value on the pick there. And I will say this, though, for all of the brouhaha throughout the offseason about Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart, boy, they both looked good last week. But the problem is if Jacksonville's offensive line is anywhere close to as good as it looked last week, which they're not going to get to play the Panthers every single week, so I'm not going to. But if it's at least good offensive line play, maybe not great, good, then that's going to slow down that because we know that the Browns roster has regressed. That offensive line isn't what it was a couple of years ago. And then on the flip side, Jacksonville, it may not be Myles Garrett, but Josh Hines-Allen is still a very good player, and Travon Walker is a very good player, and I think Jacksonville could make life hell on the Bengals offense. I think that game's going to be close, so I'll take the points. And then the final bet of the weekend for me is the Denver Broncos minus 2.5 on the road against the Colts. I may be insane, but I don't buy the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Dolphins might be the worst team in the NFL, period. I don't think that Daniel Dimes is having a Sam Darnold renaissance, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy it. So I'm looking at good value. I'm looking at getting points at home, all that, but I'm throwing all that out the window to go with the Broncos minus 2.5. I just think the Broncos are a way better football team than what the Colts saw last week.
I feel like the Colts are being overrated off week 1 because Miami, they had a meltdown. Tua had a meltdown.
Absolutely.
If you haven't heard, the latest is that Miami had a players-only meeting already.
It's week 1.
It legitimately had a players-only meeting after losing this week. It's literally after week 1. So Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat. So I think Indy took advantage of a bad Tua, and the momentum kind of rolled down the hill. Indy gets up big, changes Miami's strategy and plan and approach offensively. Denver's defense is much better, much better than Miami's defense. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to have nearly as good of a time as he had last weekend. The question for me, though, is whether or not Bo Nix can do enough. I think he and Sean Payton can. I've got Denver winning as well. I'll take the minus 2.5. I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what happened last week in that Colts game is things spiraled for the Dolphins. Also, game script went in the Colts' favor in a major way. They never were really under pressure in any way. That changes the play calling. It's not a close game. You can just run, make it easy on Daniel Jones. If it doesn't work, you just punt. Once he feels a little bit of pressure from that Broncos front seven, the Broncos, 6 sacks last week against the Titans. And look, the Colts offensive line is far better than the Tennessee Titans offensive line. We know that. But at the same time, this was the number 1 sack defense in the NFL last year. And we know that Daniel Jones doesn't handle pressure well. When the going gets tough, he's not the guy that you can look to in the huddle and be like, oh, this guy will lead us. And you know who told me that? You, Nick Cattle, is one of the first clips I ever cut of you on Locked On Patriots, was talking about how Daniel Jones just doesn't have that to him. And I agree 100%. And I think in a close game, Daniel Jones will unravel and make the mistake that he's made his entire career. And that's why I'll go with the better coach team and the better football team overall with the Broncos. But what an incredible episode. Week 2 of the NFL. You guys are ready to go. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, Nick Cattles. As we tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.